everyone. So what we want to talk about in about 20 minutes, no more today, is just to give you all an update of the science behind this program, because we oftentimes talk about the various components of the program, but we've done so much science in the meantime, even compared to 6 months ago, that you don't know about. And we thought it might be a good idea to give you an understanding of what is the foundation of this program. And I'll tell you why it's important. Why it's important is because we know there are many programs that are facilitative out there, and they're pure motherhood stuff for the most part. We know they work. The reality is that there are very few programs that have been actually put through a scientific test, meaning you compare them against to the usual care that patients get to see, is there really a benefit, or it's just, it sounds good. It's pure motherhood stuff. Of course, it has to be good, but the truth is we don't have any scientific evidence. Nobody kind of put the program through the test to see, are there some
Real
tangible
benefits,
at the end of the program. Yeah. So we want to give you an update with regards to that. So we started this exploring the needs of the patients about 9 years ago, when we were interested in what's happening to men affected by prostate cancer. What are their needs overall with respect to their cancer survivorship that perhaps nobody looked at. And to do that, we put together a questionnaire that had golden standard questions. And we asked, in addition to questions related to the cancer itself, like in case of breast cancer, things related to mammogram and testing and so on, we also wanted to know things related to quality of life, mental health. And the results of that particular survey came back, and they told a very unique story. And it's interesting because we've heard that there is a gap between what the patient goes through and what the medical system has to offer, right? In the medical system, you are fantastic at having treatments that are focused on dealing with a disease.
Yeah, it's trying to cure a cancer, but we're actually not even treating the full person and everything they're going through. Yeah.
Right. And so you see, that's the gap. The gap is that we're not a disease. We are people with psychological ways of thinking, with beliefs, with values that matter to
within
us.
relationships,
Within relationships,
communities,
within spiritual understandings,
yes.
and religions perhaps that we believe in. So the issue is much more complex. And the results came back with this particular sample of men diagnosed with prostate cancer. We tested them here in Maritimes, Canada. And Maritimes, Canada has a lot in common with say, New Zealand. We're very insular, we're on a peninsula right by the ocean, that kind of living, down to earth folks. And the results came back, and they show that in addition to side effects that men had with respect to their treatments, things like urinary incontinence, sexual dysfunction, bowel problems sometimes, they were feeling lonely, they were feeling isolated, they were worrying about their relationships, family and friends, they were having trouble sleeping, and they felt very, very isolated. And then we looked at mental health, and that's when, wow, both Rob and I went, what's going on here? What we noticed is that in this sample of 500 Maritimes men, their rates of mental depression and anxiety were 20%. That's more than double that of men in the normal population. We then started looking at independent data sets, and we found out that the same thing was happening. We looked at the whole Atlantic provinces in Canada, the 4 of them, and then we looked at the entire country, and we're noticing the same patterns. And the last 2 were independent data sources, meaning we had nothing to do with the data collection. It was a bunch of researchers. They did their work. We just looked at their data. At the same time, when we started publishing, people in Denmark, people in New Zealand, people in USA, people in Australia started looking, because in the scientific evidence, when somebody comes up and they make such a strong statement, everybody starts looking at their data. So on the basis of those results, we decided to put this intervention, which now is Cancer PEP. But at the base of it, it started as prostate cancer patient empowerment program, and then it moved into cancer patient empowerment program. The program had all those facets that you're familiar with. It's the longest program in the world, is the most comprehensive in the world. It's led by experts. There's an oncologist and a scientist leading it. We also do the program with you. So it's not just you do this. It's like we're doing it together. And with that comes a little bit of humility and understanding of what it means to try hard to change your life around so that you can live a better life.
Right. And the other thing that Gabriela says is that there are many facets to the program, and so people can choose to engage in the program in a way that makes sense for them. If it was just an exercise program, people who don't want to do exercise would never participate. If it was just a dietary program, if it was just a cognitive program, if it was just a support group, you'd have maybe a few people doing each of those. But because it's very comprehensive, people can tap into it in a way that makes sense for them.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because in addition to being comprehensive, there's a consistency and stability, because they're the same people behind the program. And you might say, well, what's the big deal, Gabriela? But there is a big deal from a pure scientific point of view. When you give people access to multiple aspecting of living, but that they're disconnected from each other, the literature says that the benefits are not there and people drop much faster. And in fact, there are no sustained results long term. That is why people say, but I tried a diet, but it worked, and then it didn't. Right? Because there's lack of consistency and stability. So although we're making this very quick for this presentation, what we want to stress out is that there is a lot of science and methodology that has gone into this program to understand what the scientific literature already said in terms of what's working. And we put that to test through this program. We called it the Prostate Cancer Patient Empowerment Program. First, we had a feasibility trial of only 30 men, and even after 30 days, so at that time, the first feasibility version of the program, which was 30 days, even after 30 days, we noticed a decrease in people's mental health, an improvement
in mental health,
a decrease in mental distress, an improvement in overall quality of life, loss of weight, relationship satisfaction was improved. So we noticed some benefits, but because it was only 30 days, we said, no, we have to go through the whole version. The long version, the 6 months version, is available throughout New Zealand and Canada, is also now available in South Africa, in Europe, and soon to be in Australia. You know what the program consists of: daily emails from Rob and I, prescribing, describing, and explaining the various components of the program, why they're important. I'm going to jump over that. There's aerobic exercise. 5 days of the week, you are asked to move your body for at least 30 minutes, not sitting too much. So we are against sedentarism, moving your bodily parts. We have strength training. You get elastic bands to help you with that. We have those dietary videos, cooking videos, every week a new one. Plant-based, cheap, nutritious, delicious, things that you can buy, things that you can do at home, back to in a way, the way things were before the Industrial Revolution, where people used to stay at home and cook. Like we have grandparents, that actually used to make meals that lasted a couple of days. So we're back to that pure, no ultra-processed foods. We talk about time-restrictive eating. We talk about vitamin D. We talk about the importance of eating with a peaceful, loving mind.
Nice.
Pelvic floor exercises for the
prostate, guys.
For the prostate. We have relaxation with or without a biofeedback monitor. For the longest time, for PCPEP, we use one. For Cancer PEP, we didn't use one. In fact, we run a randomized clinical trial to see if it makes a difference. It doesn't.
It doesn't matter, because
as long as you meditate,
you practice something.
Prescribed intimacy and connection. Again, there is a science and a methodology around those issues. The role of forgiveness, the role of spiritual orientation, and the role of having loving relationships. Monthly video conferences. We have this one now. There's a buddy system. There's a mentor system. We have the Facebook group. We have live recording events. And then we have weekly compliance surveys that are not mandatory, but our scientific evidence showed, and we'll show you in a second, that they're actually very important, because they make people accountable, and they're much more likely, even if they see the type of activities they should have engaged that week in, it promotes better adherence to the program. Okay, so we started testing it, but testing it in the highest rigorous levels of science. What did we do? We took in at first 128 men that just got diagnosed with prostate cancer. They had curative disease, and we randomly assigned them to one of two groups. The first group followed the normal, usual, standard medical care. You get diagnosed, and what happens? You go through the motion. Exactly, nothing special. The other group, they were the same, only that they got the PCPEP program on top of it. And so we wanted to compare those two groups at 6 months to see what's happening with them. Because of ethical considerations, however, we didn't want those guys to be just left high and dry when we already had a feasibility study showing that actually the program is helpful. So at the end of the 6 months for those guys, we gave them the program and we wanted to know, does it help even if they get it after they were treated? Because the main criteria here is they had to be treated for the disease. So notice, we're giving them the program, but at the same time, those guys are also being treated for their cancer. So you would think there's no way in hell, no way
Or in heck.
they're gonna, in heck, there's no way they're gonna get, there's no way we're gonna observe any kind of results. There's absolutely no way, because they're gonna be, you know how it is, right? We all know what the treatments are like. But we said, let's have a look.
Do it
And
scientifically.
then at the end of the 12 months, we decided to take a look to see what are the results. Well, the results came back. What happened? The men that were in the PCPEP group and also got treated for their disease within those 6 months, their mental health improved.
Improved, yeah.
So lower scores means better mental health. Higher scores means poor mental health. So have a look. Their scores are improving at 6 months and they keep on going.
Wow.
Not much, but surely. The guys that just got the usual medical care, their scores got worse by 6 months. We give them the program and we're able to alter them somehow, but they were still much, much more distressed compared to the guys that got it as soon as
Right
possible.
from the start.
3.6 times higher odds of those guys developing depression or anxiety or both, to such an extent that they needed clinical intervention. Interesting. Then we run over 40 studies, different studies, looking at urinary symptoms, looking at quality of life. And what we found out is that the guys that got the intervention as soon as possible, they had better urinary symptoms, better quality of life. They had much better intimacy, even if they had surgery for their prostate cancer treatment at 6 months compared to the guys that got usual care. They had sustained relationship satisfaction. Their relationships didn't get worse. They didn't get better. They were sustained. Improved physical fitness. They lost about
7 pounds,
7
right?
pounds
Yeah,
by the end
3.5
of the 6
kilograms.
months.
Yeah.
And that's important because keep in mind,
Well,
they were also treated.
they also
Okay,
got, they
so
also
there
gained
was a
muscle.
break there. They
Yeah.
were gaining muscle. They had an increased sense of illness control. They felt like, I can do something about this. I'm not just a leaf in the wind. The wind blows
Yeah.
here, I go there. The wind, so they felt much more in control of their lives. They had less treatment regret, better self-efficacy. They felt like they could activate the role in their own care.
Yes.
And we also noticed major improvements to the medical system, to the point there in terms of cost. So if you put, for example, 10,000 people through this program, you save the medical system about $6.1 million. That's significant. We call that a dominant model. Okay, so I'm not going to go through basically those graphs, all in part explain what I just said now: better urinary function, better weight. I do want to talk a little bit about weight.
This is good, actually good, yeah. And not that weight is the be all, because really fitness trumps fatness, and we just want you to be healthier and happier. But the guys on average who started the program right away lost about 3.5 kilograms of weight in that first 6 months. And then they were able to maintain it out to the 1 year. The guys that didn't have the program at the start, they actually gained weight, as you would expect, because they're going through treatment and so on. Once they started the program, they lost about 2 kilograms of weight. And I would argue it's not just that they're losing fat, they're actually gaining muscle. So they must be losing more fat than that. So
then we looked at their compliance survey. So notice on a weekly basis, we're asking you, how much of the activities you're doing, how much you're working out, what's your intensity level, and so on. And so we graphed all those out to take a look at it. And what we're noticing, that whether you give the program early or late to the gents, they were just as committed. They were going at it with a vengeance. So, and they were either being on track in terms of the hours and the time that they spent, or they were doing better. This is just a graph to show that self-efficacy, when we looked at what mediated those positive results in terms of mental health, it was self-efficacy. People really felt like something activated within themselves that made them take ownership of their own care. How wonderful is that? This is a cost efficiency. I'm just going to go over it because I want to go quickly to I'm just going to jump over
Well,
those.
just that we have the
Oh.
program's expanding internationally as well. I think that's kind
Yeah,
of
those are
cool.
all clinicians
Site
throughout
leads,
Canada, throughout
yeah.
the world. This is Peter Dickens in New Zealand. We have the Cancer Society of New Zealand, the Southern Society. But just to tell you, since then, we decided to expand the program to all forms of cancer. We wanted to know if it works.
Yeah.
The short answer is yes, of course. We noticed similar results for cancer PEP as we did for PC PEP. Then we didn't stop there. We decided to take a look at chronic disease. Is it conceivable that, although in my view as a scientist, I thought there's no impetus for cancer, you've got cancer. It's the big
You're
thing.
motivated, yeah.
You're motivated. We thought with chronic disease, nothing will happen. Well, we were wrong again. Similar results were observed with the program that we developed for all forms of chronic disease. Since then, the Canadian Cancer Society of New Zealand, Kidney Cancer Canada, CCRAN, and other organizations have taken the program and offering it for free to their members. And I think that's just remarkable. But I just want to give you a glimpse of some of the results for cancer PEP. Have a look at here. So what you're seeing here is at the start. So this is a trial that we run over 24 months, and the 24 months data is just coming in now, but I do have the results up to 12 months. At the beginning, when people came in the program, very much like with the gents with prostate cancer, they had fear, they had anxiety, they were worrying about their family, their friends, they were having trouble sleeping, and they were feeling isolated. Notice how those numbers are going down at 6 months and even more so at 12 months, just overall.
They're benefiting over the whole year.
That's right. And just in terms of mental health, just to look at this, at the beginning of the trial.
Look at the blue one, yeah.
Right. 44% of all people in the trial, and there were 104 of them. So the whole sample, 44 of them had screened positive for non-specific psychological distress and need for clinical intervention. By the 6 months, that percentage went down to 25% and was maintained at a year, which is considerable. What you're seeing here in orange are a smaller cohort of 58 women that happen to all have breast cancer in the cohort. So we have a distribution of the various forms of cancer, but the majority of them were breast cancer. And it's interesting to see that this sub-analysis maintained similar results. Just a little snapshot of the various manuscripts we have now being reviewed. Some of them have been accepted for publication. We noticed improvement in weight for the cancer PEP participants and BMI, reduction in psychological distress, behavioral changes, improved sleep, improved dietary habits, reduced sedentarism, and just highlighting the program's role in sustaining those things. So at the moment, we're working with non-for-profit organizations in the various countries where now the program is being expanded. And I'm going to jump over the testimonials. And those are just the results. Again, I will not be more than 3 minutes at this. Just wanted to show you a glimpse of what happened when we put the program to test for people affected by chronic disease. Notice in the sample, the majority of them were female.
But there's a lot of medical illnesses as well.
In there. Yeah. So the program overall received an over 9 out of 10 evaluation in terms of being well perceived by patients.
That was the retreat, but yes.
That was the retreat. Yeah. And I don't have, oh, my bad. Sorry. I thought that I put some of the graphs. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, but I do have them here.
Yeah.
Reduced mental health. No, I don't have them here. No, I'm so sorry. Well, I guess I'm going to have to stop there. I thought I included some of the graphs. No, I didn't. But that's okay.
It was still remarkable. I think the takeaway was for those with people with chronic conditions, they really benefited in many different ways. And
reduced mental health, improved physical health,
lost 6.5,
less sedentarism, better dietary habits,
lost 7.6 pounds of weight.
Sleep. Yeah. But that's it.